Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
And we'd like to thank Gulfstream for their sponsorship of this program, some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. They're going to be sponsoring us through the championship meet, which goes through Florida Derby weekend, end of March, beginning of April. So, again, appreciate their sponsorship during that time. A lot of great racing coming up down at Gulfstream. Championship meet kicked off Thanksgiving Day, and we are in the thick of it. We're headed down, I believe, Fountain of Youth weekend for our live coverage. So should be fun. Again, thanks to Gulfstream. Seth Merrow, Racing Across America on a Sunday morning. As usual, we'll take a look at some of the action from yesterday. But on the holiday week, there was some stakes action really all week long. So we'll look at some of that as well. But I also want to alert you because there is plenty of wagering action today. One, I think, is going to attract a lot of attention. Well, really, they'll all attract, I think, a lot of attention, but certainly Delmar. I'll get to that in a second, though. Do want to remind you that a week from yesterday, next Saturday, we have an online trifecta challenge with, I believe, $350 up for grabs. That'll be split amongst the top three finishers. And you can go to capitalotb.com now to enter. Everybody who enters is going to be able to play. We'll close the entries probably midweek and then send everybody all the information you need to fill out your Trifecta Challenge entry. But the entries are now open at capitalotb.com. Go to the website, click on the promotions link, look for that graphic, click on that, and fill out your name and info on the entry form. And again, you're in to take a shot next Saturday, online Trifecta Challenge. And I also want to remind you that if you come down to the Clubhouse Racebook next Saturday, $700 up for grabs, King of the Hill. I would hope we would have kind of a full house out here at the Racebook with a $700 prize. You can walk away with a nice chunk of extra change in your pocket. King of the Hill is not easy, but why not? Yeah, It's not easy, but you have zero chance if you don't come down. So come on down and give it a shot next Saturday here at the Clubhouse Racebook to see if you can walk away with $700. Again, Saturday, 711 Central Avenue in Albany, King of the Hill contest. All right, now today, as I say, there are some interesting wagering opportunities. First of all, a two-day Pick Six carryover at Aqueduct, $79,000. And I was kind of surprised. The sequence yesterday was not crazy at Aqueduct. Started out with Looms Boldly, an $18 winner, then a $7 winner, 16, 22, 10, and 676. But it was one of those sequences, I guess, there was only one favorite in there. So, you had 1, 2, 3, 4 triple-digit winners. They weren't crazy necessarily, but to put them all on one ticket was obviously a chore for people, and nobody did it. So two-day carryover today down at Aqueduct in their Pick Six, $79,000. Don't forget, closing day at Churchill, that means they're paying out. And their Derby City Six, $451,000 in that pool. And that may be a 20-cent increment. It's not more than 50. I don't think. Check on that, but I think you can put together a nice little ticket for a reasonable amount of money and take your shot at the mandatory pay on closing day at Churchill. $451,000 in the Pick Six down at Churchill today for closing day. But what I was alluding to at the top with Delmar, the winner in the Seabiscuit yesterday, and again, they are in the midst of their turf festival at Delmar. It's closing weekend at Delmar as well. But the Seabiscuit yesterday was won by Call Sign 7, who hadn't been seen since last March for Mike McCarthy, trainer. Seabiscuit was a handicap, so Call Sign 7 was the 116-pound lightweight, went up to a few horses with 123 pounds, so was getting a break from everybody in the field, but also got a great ride up the rail. Just really found an opening and came up, and call sign 7 gets it done in the Seabiscuit at $139, 68 to 1, 68.5 to 1. Which blew up the early pick 5. All of that leads to there was a $329,000 carryover in the early pick 5 today at Delmar. And again, it's closing day. That makes it a mandatory out there. Races 1 through 5. If we get a chance, we may glance through the sequence a little bit later on in the show. One way or the other, I'll put a ticket out on Twitter, I think, a little bit later. Because this will attract a lot of attention. All 3 of these, I think, will attract attention. But that pick 5, pick 5s with the carryover, there you go, $329,000 up for grabs. And again, it's closing day. There's going to be a mandatory races 1 through 5. So keep all of that in mind for this afternoon. As I said earlier, some very nice wagering opportunities on this Sunday. All right, let's go back to Saturday. There was no stakes race in New York yesterday. Next week is going to be a big week, though, Cigar Mile weekend in New York. But a little break on the stakes action in New York. But certainly at Churchill, we had Joe Christofek on yesterday. Closing weekend, and that means Stars of Tomorrow featured 2-year-olds throughout the day down at Churchill, but also 4 nice stakes races with the 2-year-olds, and it kicked off a little bit early in the card with the 4th race, the Ed Brown for 2-year-olds sprinting 6.5 furlongs, scratched down to a disappointing field of 4. Anytime you get 6 is a little bit disappointing, but you get less than 6, it takes a little of the wind out of the sails. But there was a nice field of 4. I took a shot with Big Dom, who for Tommy Amos had won the career debut up at Saratoga, sprinting. Then it stretched out in a stake at Keeneland and didn't fare well, but was cutting back to a sprint. I thought Big Dom was going to be interesting. In the field of 4, Big Dom went off as the longest price on the board at 8 to 1. So I took a little swing there, but all eyes were on Boyd. Bob Baffert ships this one east off a big debut victory early in September at Delmar. Boyd, the number 6 horse, with Flavian Prat on board. And as you can see, top of the stretch, I thought it's going to be maybe interesting. I wasn't thrilled about my horse, the number 3, Big Dom, but I thought the top of the stretch might be interesting with Boyd. But a few strides into the stretch, he starts to pull away and does. And then my horse comes on late. Big Dom comes on, and I thought made a nice late run on a track that has been kind to speed, and winds up a good second in there. No threat to the winner, but was clear for second. Again, his longest price on the board. And I thought with a $3.48 horse on top to get the $18 and change exact, it was okay. If you like Big Dom, I had Big Dom over Boyd in the 4-horse field. Again, playing around with those in the exact, you wound up all right with the big favorite winning. But I am kind of looking at both of those to be interesting. And Boyd, one of the follow-up articles I read said, does Baffert ships east, gets a win over Churchill with a 2-year-old, lately raced 2-year-old. So do we think of this one as maybe a Derby horse? And one of the postscript articles I read kind of went more in the direction of, or maybe the Pat Day Mile next year, because so far we're 2 for 2 sprinting. So we'll see. If you have a good 3-year-old, I think, particularly Bob Baffert, I'm sure at some point they try the 2 turns at least. So we'll find out. But so far, so good for Boyd. I haven't seen the numbers yet. The buyers checked again just before we went on the air. Didn't see anything, but a 92 buyer in the debut out at Delmar. So if we can back that up, that would be two pretty good performances. But again, Big Dom returns to a sprint, and I thought ran very well with the big stretch run there to wind up second. So a couple to look at going forward out of, as I say, the scratch-reduced 4-horse field in the Ed Brown yesterday at Churchill. And again, there is a Kentucky Derby future wager this weekend. It closes at 6 o'clock tonight. And it's one of those with the 2-year-old racing at Churchill. You certainly wanted to step back and see. And Boyd closed at 21 last night, closed. They're still obviously betting today. And again, keep your eyes on it if you like Boyd. But last night when I checked, 21-1 in the Derby future pool after the win yesterday for Boyd. Also on the card was the Fern Creek, $225,000 up for grabs as the Phillies will go 6.5. Essentially the ladies' version of what we just saw with the boys. I like Paige Turner in here for Cherie DeVoe, who had a couple of nice efforts so far in the career, which included a second up at Saratoga and then one in the second start pretty nicely at Churchill. And I'm trying to fix my monitor. I had On Time Girl in the second slot for Brad Cox. On Time Girl is going to be the number 7 horse, and will get it done, and get it done pretty convincingly. It was a decent run from Paige Turner. Again, this was only the 3rd career start for Paige Turner's number 2, only the 3rd career start for that one, and the first in a stake. So I thought it was an okay effort for Paige Turner, but On Time Girl gets it done in the 3rd career start. Second stakes for On Time Girl. She ran second in the Myrtlewood at Keeneland. So 4 starts for On Time Girl, 3 wins, and a stakes victory as well for that one. It was, again, Brad Cox, Irad Ortiz on board, running second on my horse, Paige Turner, Jose Ortiz. They're 1-2 in the standings going into the last day down there at Churchill. But again, we shall see going forward for both of these. So far, all they've done is sprint. We will see what they do going forward. Again, you have a nice 3-year-old filly, like a 3-year-old male. At some point, you may try, or occasionally you get the folks who are just clued in and happy with, hey, we got a pretty good sprinter. Let's keep rolling there, because there are plenty of opportunities on the 3-year-old sprint side as well for notable stakes. So we'll see what they do with both of these. But again, I think another race where top 2 finishers look pretty good, worth watching going forward. Paige Turner, part of the ownership group, our friends at West Point. So a nice run again there in their stakes debut for that one. But On Time Girl looking pretty good now with, again, 3 wins in 4 career starts so far. Also on the card yesterday, boys and the girls went 2 turns. We'll start with the boys in the Kentucky Jockey Club. The horse to watch here, I mentioned it yesterday when we had Joe Christofek out in the morning. I mentioned it again the afternoon. Further Ado, who had a couple of sprint starts up at Saratoga that were, hey, nothing special, particularly when you're considering it's Brad Cox and Spendthrift and a son of Gunrunner. Ran 5th in the debut, 3rd in the second start up at Saratoga, but then went down to Keeneland and tried 2 turns for the first time and just was eye-popping with the performance, won by 20 lengths, going 1.16 miles. So what were we going to get in the follow-up from Further Ado yesterday? Well, we got a victory. It wasn't a 20-length victory, but this was a stakes race, a grade 2 stakes race versus the maiden special weight event. Further Ado's the number 6 horse, and you can see kind of grinding it out here over Soldier and Diplomat, who is not given in very easily. That one will wind up getting nipped, though, for second, as a big late run from Universe winds up getting the second place finish. So Universe may be one to watch as well. But Further Ado comes out of this now 2 for 2 at 2 turns, including a grade 2 stretch run. Irad Ortiz, Brad Cox. As I say, Universe may be one to watch for Ken McPeak, who now has tried 3 stakes races. This is a horse with only 4 starts, won the career debut up at Saratoga, then was 3rd in the Champaign, was second in the Street Sense, and now second with, again, that was a nice late run. Second in the Kentucky Jockey Club. So Universe, one guy I think to watch going forward as well. Brian Hernandez on board, as you would expect for a Ken McPeak trainee. But again, nice performance. And Soldier and Diplomat, I thought was gutsy there as well. Soldier and Diplomat, as Steve Asmussen runner, that won the career debut at Saratoga, then fourth in the Hopeful, came down to Churchill and won non-winners who won. And then, again, a gutsy performance in the stretch in the first two-turn race, because the first race was 6 furlongs up at Saratoga, 7 furlongs in the Hopeful, and went the one-turn mile to win in the previous race. So, sometimes that 2 turns, it'll take them a start or two to really get it kicked up a notch. But Soldier and Diplomat, worth watching. Third, Universe, definitely in the second place finish, but clearly now with the 2 nice performances, Further Ado. And again, didn't see a number. Going to be interested to see, because the big win in the previous start for Further Ado was at 98 over at Keeneland. So intrigued to see what he comes up with off of the win yesterday in the Kentucky Jockey Club. Looked at his Derby future, and he got 10 Derby points out of this. So gets a few points on the Derby trail. His odds last night on the Derby, in the Derby future pool, 14-1. I always say, really any of the Derby future pools. I mean, as you get a little bit later, as you maybe get to that last pool, you can maybe play around a little bit. Last couple of pools maybe, but you're in November, you want at least 20-1. It's 20-1 that they make it to the Derby at this point, much less win. So I guess if you're enamored with this horse, and I could understand if you are, you might accept it, but 14-1. Again, it just seems a little slim, given you still have to not just perform in the prelim races that will be coming up, but you have to get into the starting gate before you can even win. So 14-1 is not necessarily super attractive to me. There's also Derby Future Pool closes today, but there's also a Sire Future Pool, which is kind of fun. And Further Ado's Sire Gun Runner, I looked at that up last night as well. Last night he was 4-1. But don't forget, with the Sires, you get multiple horses. So you may be a little more forgiving on the odds. I'm not sure 4-1. But, and I will also note that if you go to the Kentucky Derby website, and the top drop-down menu is a wager, I believe. And if you click on that, you'll see Future Wager. Click on that. There are PPs for the entire future pool field, which nowadays I think is 40, 39 individuals, and then all others. Same with the Sires. But there's free PPs for the all the 2-year-olds that are currently under consideration. And there's also PPs. The PPs for the 40 entrants are, 10 pages maybe. But there's a set of PPs for the Sires, which I think in the neighborhood of 258 pages. And I wasn't sure what I was going to get there. But what you get is parsed out alphabetically, I believe, each Sire's, all the 2-year-olds they have, whether they've run or not. So it's helpful. I don't know if you want to print it out at 258, but you can pull it up on your computer and take a look. And again, the Sire pool might be a little bit of fun also if you want to take a look at that. So keep that in mind as well. Derby Future Pool closing a little bit later today. All right, and let's go on to look at the Goldenrod, which was the filly version of the 2-turn stakes race on the card for 2-year-olds yesterday. Goldenrod Grade 2 event, $400,000 up for grabs, and 8.5 furlongs was the trip. I like number 6, A Life of Joy, for Brad Cox, coming out of a win in the Rags to Riches, which made that one 2 for 2 so far. Betting public was right with me, making that one kind of a lukewarm 5-2 favorite. Atropa was interesting to me. The number 9 horse, Let Me Count the Ways, I also thought was intriguing. A couple of mine didn't do a whole lot, with Life of Joy running 4th in the field, Let Me Count the Ways running 5th. Atropa, though, the number 9 horse, who I thought was playable for Cherie DeVoe, coming off a big maiden win, that one runs 2nd. But the winner for Brendan Walsh, who continues to go very well this season. Brendan Walsh gets the score in the goldenrod with Bella Ballerina, who holds on late, as there is a charge from Atropa, the Cherie DeVoe runner, and also Just Singing is making a move late as well. But Bella Ballerina, sibling to Pretty Mischievous, so there's some talent in the bloodline, gets it done, but has to kind of work after having a nice open lead late, but winds up a chart margin of a half. Atropa was a half in front of the 3rd place finisher. So Bella Ballerina, Tyler Gaffleone, and Brendan Walsh. And again, Brendan Walsh continuing a very nice 2025. And with, performances like this and horses like this, it likely continues in 2026 for Brendan Walsh. Also, yesterday, again, out in Southern California, the holiday weekend is their Turf Festival. It's closing weekend out at Delmar. As I said earlier, don't forget, today, closing day, mandatory payout, $329,000 carryover in the early pick 5 at Delmar. And as I said, part of that went back to the stakes action yesterday. The Seabiscuit, one of those nice turf stakes, was won by Call Sign 7 at $139, which again put the kibosh on the pick 5 as far as anybody pulling up a single in there. And that was race number 5. So it would have been interesting to see how many live tickets there were, or if he was the only one that would have pulled it out like that. And I'm just looking. This is kind of interesting too. The pick 5, the carryover. The pick 4, races 2 through 5 yesterday. The pick 4, 50-cent pick 4, $21,000. So I'm assuming there may have been another horse in the sequence. I didn't look at the earlier races, but there might have been another one. Although coming up, $168 horse certainly helped juice things up. Jimmy Durante was also on the card yesterday. That was Just Aloof getting it done for Chad Brown, who had a very good day out at Delmar yesterday. The highlight of the day was the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby. Horse to beat was Test Score. As we watched the replay, Test Score is the 3 horse who just runs into a lot of trouble in the stretch and really can't find any room. So Test Score with trouble as the 4-5 favorite winds up 3rd. And again, Test Score is the number 3 horse and cannot just get anywhere to go. But you can see number 4, Salome, as Chad Brown horses tend to do, tips out and makes a big late run. Salome under Umberto Rispoli, getting it done for Chad Brown and Juddmonte. So again, nice big day out in Southern California for Chad Brown, as he also won the Jimmy Durante. So the 3 stakes yesterday, Chad picks up 2 of them. Overall, this was Chad Brown's 5th Hollywood Derby win since 2016. The Grand Motion Runner Test Score winds up 3rd, and a close up 3rd. I mean, it was a neck between Salome and Tom's Magic 1st and 2nd, and then a neck from 2nd to 3rd, Tom's Magic to Test Score, but just had nowhere to go until kind of late. And so it was a nice run from Test Score. It was a nice run from Tom's Magic as well, for Mike Stidham, who is coming off a win in a stake up at Woodbine. So again, these are 2-year-olds on the turf. If you watch enough, I love that subdivision of the 3-year-olds on the turf, where there are nice stakes at pretty much every track around the country throughout the year for the 3-year-olds. Up here we have the Hall of Fame and now the Saratoga Derby, but other venues as well. And it starts the beginning of the year and goes right through. I think all three of these are worth paying attention to. I'm referring to these as thinking with the Churchill as 2-year-olds. This is the end of the 3-year-old season. They have performed nicely, but this demonstrates that that the actual fact that there are great stakes for 3-year-olds throughout the season, and out there it winds up with the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby. And it's been a lot of fun, but Salome has not necessarily been a player in this division throughout the season on the stakes side of things. Didn't show up into a stakes race until September down at Belmont at Aqueduct, then went over to Keeneland, won the Giappani at Belmont at Aqueduct, ran 5th in the Bryan Station in the previous race, though, but goes out to Southern California, gets it done with a nice late run. Tom's Magic has been bouncing around this 3-year-old turf scene. Won the Black Gold at Fairgrounds in March, then tried the Transylvania at Keeneland, didn't fare that well there. Monmouth Tail of the Cat won that, and then went up to Woodbine for Synthetic in the King's Plate as an Ontario bred and ran 2nd. And as I say, was coming out of a stakes race win in the Breeders up there, another part of the Triple Crown season up in Canada. So that was on the turf, however. All the races were on the turf except for the King's Plate, which, again, was a good run behind Manzetti. So Tom Magic had a pretty good season as a 3-year-old on the turf. And Test Score definitely played in that 3-year-old season all year long for Graham Motion. Won the Transylvania, won the Belmont Derby, close-up 3rd in the Saratoga Derby, a win in the Twilight Derby at Santa Anita in the previous start. That was the end of October. And it stuck out in Southern California and trained into yesterday. So, again, it was a fun 3-year-old season for Test Score, who, as I say, participated in a number of the big 3-year-old stakes, again, kind of demonstrating across the country. But it was Salome who, and I would think all of these will be back next year to jump in as 4-year-olds on the turf and be solid players as well. Also, a couple other interesting notes, an interesting note. Salome for Chad Brown and Juddmonte, the same dam as Sagesta, who is entered today in the Grade 1 Delmar Matriarch for Chad Brown and Juddmonte. That one will be ridden by Flavian Pratt. Flavian was in Kentucky for the 2-year-old day yesterday, so Umberto Rispoli on board the winner in the Hollywood Derby. But the sibling, the older sibling, goes in today's Grade 1 Matriarch. That would be a nice kind of fun double, 2-day double for Chad Juddmonte and the dam. Certainly Sagesta. Take a look at her in the, again, the Matriarch a little bit later on today, closing out the Turf Festival weekend. And again, part of what will be a big day wagering-wise. That I can guarantee that will get – people love that pick 5 now. You get a carryover and a mandatory of that size out of Delmar. People will play into that. The mandatory with $451,000 in the pick 6 at Churchill is going to take a lot of action. And you get the 2-day carryover in New York as well. So, again, fire up the PPs and start handicapping. It should be a big Sunday afternoon. We'll be looking at a lot of it on OTB Live a little bit later on. We'll be taking a look at the stakes we looked at so far all yesterday. But, again, it was a holiday week, so there were some nice stakes a little bit earlier in the week as well. I thought we'd take a look at some of that action as well when we come back for Racing Across America right after this break. So stay tuned. More to come.
Racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
The championship season is on at Gulfstream Park with great horse racing action Thursday through Sunday. Come out and enjoy the world's best horses, trainers, and jockeys as they compete over the Hallandale Beach Oval all season long. Take your experience up a notch and join us in 10 Palms Restaurant with unbeatable track views, outstanding dining, and convenient wagering options. For reservations, event schedules, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow in the studio. Thanks for joining us once again. And, going back to Friday, there were a couple of nice races at Churchill on the card. We'll kick things off with the Mrs. Revere, notable because Lush Lips was in here. Brendan Walsh, I said, a very good season. Lush Lips has been a significant part of that so far this year. Lush Lips coming into the Friday race, the Mrs. Revere. 6 starts, 3 wins, 3 seconds, including a win in the QE2 at Keeneland in the previous start. Lush Lips goes off at 1-2 in the Mrs. Revere. And I will say, had to work for it. Lush Lips is the number 1 horse. Tyler Gaffleone on board. Pretty Picture is the number 10. And it will be a kind of a ding-dong battle here. As Lush Lips has to fend off the number 4 Classic Q, who winds up, unfortunately, just getting nipped late by the number 10 Pretty Picture, who comes late. Now, that late run, I don't know whether you were worried about the second place finisher, Pretty Picture, but about mid-stretch, I think Classic Q, the horse that wound up third, that horse may have been giving you a little bit of consternation, but Lush Lips eventually puts that one away. And again, it was a little too bit of a late run for Pretty Picture. Lush Lips gets it done. Chart margin over Pretty Picture, winds to be half a length, and Pretty Picture gets Classic Q for the place spot by a neck. So again, $3.14 for Lush Lips. Brendan Walsh, Tyler Gaffleone runs the 2025 record to 4 wins, 3 seconds, and 7 starts. Solid stuff. And I'm just looking the career 100. We're verging on becoming a millionaire here. Well over 900,000 after the win on Friday for Lush Lips, but certainly a very, very nice runner that, as I say, has played a significant part in the solid season for Brendan Walsh. And we'll also take a look at the highlight on Friday, clearly, and maybe the highlight of the weekend for Churchill. They said it on the broadcast a few times, the simulcast signal. Joe and company were talking about the Clark and saying, grade 2, why isn't this guy a grade 1? And you look at past winners. I think there's a solid case to be made for Churchill to get the grade 1 with the Clark. But regardless, Friday, grade 2 event, $600,000 up for grabs, 9 furlongs, the trip. Fun field in here. We had some 3-year-olds at the end of the season that looked intriguing. I thought First Mission was the interesting one. For Brad Cox, coming out of a little bit of a dull effort in the Goodwood out at Santa Anita. But, you look at the whole season, it was maybe a little bit disappointing for First Mission, but there was certainly some talent there going back to the April win in the Oaklawn Handicap with a 109 buyer. And I thought maybe set to bounce back to that. That was not the case, though. First Mission with Flavian Pratt on board as the second choice at 5-2 winds up 7th in the field of 8. First mission, the number 2 horse. But horse the betting public jumped on as the 2-1 favorite, number 9 Magnitude, one of those aforementioned 3-year-olds that gets it done for Steve Asmussen. Number 9 Magnitude in a ding-dong battle coming down the stretch here, as you can see. Hit Show, the number 3, the horse, one of the horses I liked. I had Hit Show just underneath first mission. Hit Show makes a great late run. It's just too late. And on the inside was Chunk of Gold. Again, another one of the 3-year-olds in the field. Chunk of Gold looked great. It was coming out of an optional claimer, non-winners of 2 other than win at Keeneland, and followed that up with a big performance to really make Magnitude work. Now, Magnitude pulls away a little bit at the end, but then, as I say, you got that late run from Hit Show, who was the Dubai World Cup winner earlier this year, and a good effort there. But Magnitude got it done. Again, like last year, it seems like this year was pretty clear to me. Sovereignty, Journalism, Baeza, I think were kind of 1, 2, 3. And I think between those 3, there was a definitive marker where Sovereignty, I think, had the edge. Journalism clear second, Baeza a clear third, and maybe started to get a little murky there. But then the rest of the class, which to me was maybe a little bit unproven, but now maybe we have to take an extra look. Chunk of Gold and Magnitude, much like last year, where I think at the end of the year, the class really started to define themselves a little bit. 2 years ago as well. But it bodes well for next season, as these horses become 4-year-olds in the handicap division. But Magnitude looked pretty good. This horse won the Risen Star back in February, and it's Steve Asmussen and Winchell. So you have a son of Not This Time, who gets a nice win in a stake along the 3-year-old trail down at Fairgrounds, where they have a very potent 3-year-old trail of the Triple Crown. Does it with a 108 buyer figure, but unfortunately had an ankle chip that had to be taken care of at that point. So went off the Derby trail, comes back in, so that was February, comes back in July and wins the Iowa Derby, ungraded Iowa Derby. It looks like an interesting spot to kind of get back and get a confidence booster. So wins the Iowa Derby coast to coast with a 104 buyer, then goes in the Travers, runs third in the Travers, but 20 lengths behind. So a well-beaten third in the Travers. And then a second to Baeza in the Pennsylvania Derby. Now comes back and beats Older in the Clark. Magnitude, the first 3-year-old to win the Clark since Gunrunner did it in 2016 for the same connections, Winchell and Steve Asmussen. So that was an interesting little side note as well. But Magnitude, Jose Ortiz on board for Steve Asmussen. Hit Show ran second with Irad Ortiz for Brad Cox, and Chunk of Gold, Junior Alvarado was on board that one. Again, top 3 all very interesting there. Rattle and Roll, who had won this race last year, winds up running 5th. Gosker, another 3-year-old in the group, winds up 6th. First mission, a disappointing 7th in the field of 8. So there were some disappointments in there, but top 3 I thought were all very good, and will be interesting to watch, you would think, moving forward into for the 2 3-year-olds into their 4-year-old season. Let's also take a look at a little bit earlier this week. We mentioned it last weekend as we kind of did the Sunday show. You may want to pay attention to Monday and Tuesday, because the holiday week kicked off with some nice stakes action over at Mahoning Valley, the highlight of their year, Steel Valley Sprint for $300,000. Brought in some familiar names, jockeys and trainers. Super Tuscan was in there for Safi Joseph with Irad Ortiz on board, coming out of a couple of nice wins, one at Saratoga, one at Delmar. 3 nice wins, actually. Started the trio with a win up at Woodbine. But again, Irad Ortiz was on board for Safi. That one was in town. Guns Loaded, Florent Joe on board for Jose D'Angelo. But it winds up to be number 12, Faster Gator, For Anthony Ferrier, who I have to admit I wasn't super familiar with, having Toledo on board, and does it pretty nicely here. Took action coming off a win at Mahoning Valley. I had used Faster Gator in my mix because I always like when I like the hometown heroes in these races underneath, but sometimes they can jump up. And this one wasn't necessarily the hometown hero, but was coming out of a start at Mahoning. And so I thought that was intriguing. A start and a win at Mahoning back on October 21st. So came back Monday and got it done, as the betting public made that one surprisingly the second choice, again, with some more notable names in here. Dale Romans and Corey Lannery were in the mix. Dallas Stewart, Luis Saez also in the hunt. So there were some notable names, but Anthony Ferrier brings this one in off of the win at Mahoning Valley. And I looked him up. As I say, I wasn't that familiar. One of the post-race articles quoted him as saying, I'm a claiming guy. So to have a horse that can win a stakes race is big for us. I can understand it. You have a nice stakes quality sprinter. And this horse, they had popped in some stakes before, second in the Bayshore back in April this year. And then had tried some other stakes and done okay. Third in the Hilton at Charlestown on their big night at the end of August. So it had run well in some stakes prior, but gets it done again. And the betting public on board at $6.80 as the second choice. And as I say, I looked him up, and over the next few days, kind of a mid-Atlantic guy, it seems like. Next few days, he has horses entered at Laurel, Charlestown, and Mahoning Valley. Over his career, just under 1,300 wins. So a guy who knows how to get it done. But as he said himself in the article, maybe more of a claiming guy, but a nice win and a nice 3-year-old now going forward with the stakes victory in the Steel Valley Sprint on Monday for Faster Gator. And then I also noted on last Sunday that might want to pay attention to the Zia card on Tuesday, because that was going to be highlighted by the Zia Park Derby. Number of nice undercard stakes as well there. But the Zia Park Derby, $300,000, mile and a 16th. My top pick was Brother Kenny for Bill Morey, coming out of a fourth at Keeneland, but 2 starts back had won a stake at Churchill, had been training very well at Turfway. Brother Kenny went off as the second choice. Mr. Omaha, who I had just underneath and looking very interesting, coming out of a stakes race win at Remington Park. That one went off as the 3-2 favorite. Brother Kenny was 2-1 for, again, Bill Morey. Brother Kenny gets it done here as the number 3 horse. Zero Sugar at 7-1, who lately raced runner, came in with only a couple of starts, and they were Oaklawn this spring. So it was a pretty nice comeback for Zero Sugar running second. And then remember, Big Jim runs third. But Brother Kenny gets it done. Again, the number 3 horse here, who just pushes by chart margin half a length there for the $6.80 win. Interesting note here is Brother Kenny comes out of this and is entered in the Ingles digital auction, which is running now. Started, I think it went live a few days ago, and it's live through December 3rd. And I looked it up last night. Currently, Brother Kenny sitting at $120,000 in the digital auction. And I'm just looking, $120,000. And again, it ends December 3rd, so this may kick up notably. But this is a horse after winning the other day, $500,000 in earnings in 13 career starts. So it'll be interesting to see what Brother Kenny eventually goes for in that online sale that's going on now. Had a couple more to look at quickly, going back to Thanksgiving Day at Churchill, where they had some stakes action as well. The Fall City. Both of these stakes races to me are, I've mentioned it in the past, the Fall City and the Cardinal, interesting races to watch going forward. I always think the horses that come out of these races can be productive over the next few months. So we'll see if that works out this year. But I have no qualms jumping on Alpine Princess as one to watch coming out of the Fall City. I had her on top on Thanksgiving card on the 1 sheet, and Alpine Princess, the number 4, does get it done. Brad Cox, Irad Ortiz gets it done over Corningstone, the cleverly named Kenny McPeak runner, who was 20-1 on the morning line, went up at 27-1. So Corningstone ran pretty well. Number 9 horse outruns her odds, and Raging Sea, who was a player for Chad Brown, runs third. But it was Alpine Princess getting it done as the second choice at 2-1. And again, this is a nice little stakes quality filly, 4-year-old filly for Brad Cox. We'll see if this one continues on to become a 5-year-old mare next year. I would see no reason why not. But 6 wins and 17 career starts, 4 seconds, 4 thirds. Very talented performer, clearly. And then we went on to the turf on Thanksgiving Day as well in the Cardinal. I like number 8, Pinup Betty for Mike Maker. Pinup Betty, unfortunately, is going to, as the favorite, wind up running 5th in here. The winner will be Proctor Street. Had that one right underneath. Again, Brendan Walsh, continuing the trend of a very good season. Another holiday weekend or holiday week stakes win for Brendan Walsh. Proctor Street looked pretty good. It had to overcome the outside post position, the number 11 in here, an outside post position, but does it under Tyler Gaffleone. Awesome check second, fleetingly third. But again, Brendan Walsh and Tyler Gaffleone team up Proctor Street with the victory. Now 5 wins and 8 starts for that 4-year-old filly. Talented runner. And again, another one of the ones that has made for a very good season for Brendan Walsh. All right, we can see there 12:10 post in New York. They're going to kick things off sooner rather than later. Let me just remind you once again, there is the Derby Future Pool, which closes at 6 o'clock today. Again, I would not take less than 20-1 on anyone. And we'll see how it shakes out. But 39 individual entrants. Number 40 is all others. There's also the Derby Future Pool. And I was intrigued. I just wondered, I looked back, going back to 2010, so the last 15 years, how the sires broke out. There was no repeat sires going back amongst Derby winners going back to 2010, except for Into Mischief, who has had 3 of the last 5, the last 3 of the last 6. 2020 Authentic was by Into Mischief, 2021 Mandaloon, and last year's Sovereignty. So the only repeat sire amongst the Kentucky Derby winners going back to 2010 is Into Mischief. And I looked on the morning line, he was 4-1. I'm not sure, but again, you get all of his offspring, and he's going to be a short price. Why? Ted Noffey will take the value from Into Mischief. But again, the sire pool as well amongst the future wager. And don't forget, again, probably talk a little bit about it this afternoon on OTB Live, but a nice sequence. And I think I'll put a ticket out on Twitter a little bit later. Races 1 through 5, Delmar, early pick 5 carryover, $329,000. Pick 6 carryover with a mandatory closing weekend. It's a mandatory at Delmar, closing weekend at Churchill, also a mandatory $451,000. You can see right there, Aqueduct, $79,000 carryover in their pick 6 as well. All right, going to send it now quickly to League Lockdown with Anthony Probst. Set you up for the NFL next couple of days. And then we'll head to New York for Talking Horses. Stay tuned.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest. And to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Haven't signed up for a Capital OTB account yet? Now's the time to take advantage of the sign-up bonus. Open up a new account with $200 or more, bet $400 by the end of the month, and receive a bonus $200 into your account. Plus, you can take advantage of everything an OTB account has to offer. Wagering from any device, live streaming, racing info, past performances, online promotions, and more. Sign up.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to League Lockdown, brought to you by Capital OTB. I'm your host, Anthony Probst, and we're going to be previewing and reviewing a few scores and the upcoming games today on Sunday. But first, we got to look back at the Thanksgiving Day card. It was a little, if you're a fan of these teams, disappointing. If you aren't a fan of these teams, you're probably happy. Dallas, Kansas City, 4-15. Cowboys over the Chiefs, 31-28. Even earlier in 1 o'clock, Lions and Packers, 31-24. Packers over the Lions. And the 8 o'clock spot, the Bengals over the Ravens, 32-14. Yes, if you watched the games 5 days prior, last weekend on Sunday, the Lions, Chiefs, and the Ravens all won, then turn around and lose on Thanksgiving. Awesome. We love that. Black Friday football came back again this year. You had the Bears over the Eagles. That one was a shock. Well, we'll be honest. Bears beat the Eagles, so now that's 2 in a row for Philadelphia on losses. But it's okay. They got time to turn it around. But let's look ahead to today's games on Sunday. At 1 o'clock spot, you got the Saints over the Saints and the Dolphins, the Texans and the Colts. And for Colts fans, Daniel Jones will be good to go. He will be all set. And now, Texans fans, I know you're going to be happy about this one. C.J. Stroud makes his grand return after being out on concussion protocol for 3 weeks. He is finally back. So, rejoice, Texans fans. Next, you have the Falcons and the Jets, the 49ers and the Browns, and Shedeur Sanders will be starting once again. You have the Rams and the Panthers, the Jags and the Titans, and then the Cardinals and the Bucks. 4 o'clock spot, you got the Vikings and the Seahawks. And now with the Vikings, J.J. McCarthy is out. And Max Brosmer, he will be making his first career start for them. So we're going to get to see how he handles it, how he fares. So it'll be an interesting game. You got the Bills and the Steelers. And Mr. Aaron Rodgers, Uncle Aaron, is back in action. He'll be playing again. Raiders and the Chargers, Broncos and the Commanders. And Sunday Night Football, you got the Rams and the Bucks. Then we move ahead to Monday Night Football. You got the Giants and the Patriots. And for you Giants fans, I know you're going to be happy about this one. Also returning to the gridiron out of concussion protocol, Jackson Dart. He is back. He is starting. And we're going to have to see how well this one goes, because last week, Giants were able to push it to OT with the Lions. So will Jackson Dart maybe pull off an upset against Drake May and the Patriots, who are on a 10-game win streak? We will find out. But some bigger injuries this weekend. We have Bills. Left tackle Deion Dawkins is out. Right tackle Spencer Brown is out. Linebacker Terrell Bernard is out. And wide receiver Curtis Samuel all out. So Josh Allen is going to have his hands full. He is going to be, I want to say, scrambling a lot, making a few good passes. So we're going to have to see how well that one plays out. For you Saints fans, running back Alvin Kamara, he has also been ruled out on Friday. And then Cardinals, you have your running back, Bam Knight, and your wide receiver, Marvin Harrison, both questionable. However, running back I'm going to pronounce this right, Mercado, I hope I pronounced that right, ruled out for Sunday's card. And I don't really have a game of the weekend. Like, if we want to talk about games of the weekend, it'd be more of what already transpired. The Ravens and the Bengals, the Chiefs and the Cowboys, and the Lions and the Packers, and then Bears and Eagles. So I'm not going to say there's a designated game of the weekend, but with the rest of this Sunday, the way it's shaping up, I want to say we're going to have to keep an eyebrow raised, keep some eyes open. And I'm honestly going to throw it. I don't want to give them credit. I'm going to say we're going to just keep eyes on the Bills side. We're going to keep eyes on the Bills side because with Josh Allen having a little bit of trouble on his hands, we're going to keep eyes on the Bills side of that game. And then I can't really narrow down one, honestly. We'll throw Texans Colts into the mix because Daniel Jones and the Colts have been kind of hitting a rough patch here the last few weeks, and the Texans kind of been pulling some things around. So we're going to have to see where all this leads to. And if you want to see all this action, you want to watch all this NFL goodness, come on down right here to Central Avenue, 7-Eleven in Albany. And right here at the Clubhouse Racebook, our food and vendor partner, Black Bear. Great food, all the football action, all the horse racing action, all in one place. Beautiful, beautiful place. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap it up this Sunday. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to stay locked in.
Because even if Manny's aggressive, the best he's doing is chasing. Right? So.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be too far out of it, right?
I know, but, and talking about yesterday's track, where, in my opinion, we had a strong inside bias, and it's fair for some people to point out, you saw a couple of races fall apart later in the day. I believe it's a function of the fact that they had extremely strong 3 and 4 horse pace duels in there, with everybody being conscious of the racetrack. But I think it's a reasonable point to bring up. And listen, you can have a bias one day and not a bias the next.
Yeah, I mean, you pay whatever you're playing, pick 6, especially with a double carryover. Pay intense attention to how things are playing this afternoon. But yeah, what was it, race 4 or 5? We saw jockeys changing what they do.
Yeah, I think after the Noda horse won a little bit, after the first one, what's her name? The former good horse, the former speed horse that drew off at 7 furlongs. The horse that used to be 10 strike, had the rail.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll look it up.
It's a New York bred. Anyway, used to be a stakes horse. Anyway, ran like a stakes horse yesterday. I just thought that Rodolphe had run a couple of figures that were fast enough to compete here, gets a rider switch to Manny Franco, and if he could find those better figs, he had a chance to pull the upset here at a price. I was just looking for somebody because I really didn't want to take Liberty Rising on top. I picked him last time. He's the horse to beat. I just didn't want to take him at what's going to end up being a short price. The horse that's 2-1 right now, that's sort of co-favored on the morning line, Dormello. Do we have any idea if this horse can run even a step?
No, but he's a danger because look, it's Mott. It's a horse who took a lot of money in a state-bred maiden special in his debut at Saratoga, and that's his only dirt start, and then they put him on grass. So, and they had a blinkers there.
Now he's in for 30.
I mean, you have to – you can't – taking all that money against a better group, he could probably run.
I don't know. I don't know if he can run at this
against
point.
This, you don't have to run much against this group either, right?
Yeah, but I'll put it this way. He wins, I lose. I get it. He could win. Obviously, I picked a horse that's kind of ridiculous. So who am I to knock anything?
I don't know if you did. So, one of the reasons I liked the 4 so much was not just that it was going to be low in speed. Yes, that was a huge reason. Also kind of like the race he was coming out of, that game bred race. Rodolphe was in that game bred race back on September the 26th.
Yes.
Game bred actually was dropping from state bed and maybe special when he won that race.
Later.
Yes, against 50 N2L. So I actually kind of like that race. So I don't think that's a crazy pick. I don't have him in my top 4, but
no problem. I'm going to be betting him in here.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens. Chili Cheesesteak's taking some early money. You've got second. There's just no pedigree on this horse. I know Honest Mischief's been okay, but the damn side, she's produced like 9 horses. 4 of them were bad and 5 of them never ran. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens in race number 1. We'll see if the 1 just finally found the right field. Race number 2. No surprise that Linda scratched one of her 2 entrants, and we'll start with K-Cup. And K-Cup might be the biggest favorite on today's card, and this is the Bowery. And I don't bias or no bias. If she runs a race, she ran the Bowery, she's probably going to win this race. I just wasn't totally trusting of her after her last race.
That's fine. I mean, and that was I just, that was a mile and an eighth. She did take a little bit of a step back. I don't think it was as horrible as the Spire Speed figures have it as it looks on paper. It's just a much superior group of horses she has faced for her whole body of work. And she has even 2 and 3 back and 4 back. All those races, I feel like, win here pretty convincingly.
I'm not against her. I picked a horse against her, but I am not against her in this race. What I am interested in is how this race is run, because the pace projector has the 3 in front. And if we have a bias, you're supposed to throw Bam's Bliss Kiss in. But as we show you city blocks in here, I find it hard to believe, especially the way the track played yesterday, that you're not going to get a similar type ride from Ricardo Santana. Now, Bam's Bliss Kiss is a faster horse.
Yes.
But I don't think Ricardo is just conceding the lead with this horse. Do you?
No.
Maybe it doesn't matter what he does.
Yeah, I think inherently the 3 would be quicker. But look, city blocks still could get a great trip, sit right behind that. This horse has actually been able to sit off and win city blocks. That was a huge jump forward and a win from that one last start.
I agree.
A little bit so big that it concerned me. I want to see it again.
I agree. And it was 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Maybe Eddie, maybe she somehow came out of a mild issue. But, it's also
interesting. Yeah.
fair to say she really improved for Eddie. I mean, you look at her last 5, Eddie had her for 5 races, and her last 4 races, 4 of the 5 races for Eddie, were considerable improvements for her before. Now, Eddie had her in the past, but she also ran okay a little for Eddie in the past. She was a better horse for him. Now, I don't love her in today's race. You've got her second, but I think she's a threat. And as you say, she sits right in the inside behind the 3 Bam's Bliss Kiss. And if you have yesterday's track, she gets the right kind of trip. Now, these picks are based on the track being fair. I am not going to alter my picks because of yesterday's track. I thought Embraceable Gal was a very interesting claim by Linda Rice. And she is a horse, if she can get back to her best races, I thought she had a chance to win this. And I strictly took this horse off of the Linda claim.
Yeah, I mean, incredibly dangerous. 15 of her 30 starts, she's been first or second, 7 wins. She's going to, cut back a touch here where
she's not beating K-Cup if K-Cup runs her good race.
Of course
I don't care what happens.
Not. But she does have races, I thought 2, 3 back that were very dangerous in here. And she's going in the right direction, I feel like, late in the year.
Yeah. I thought it was an interesting claim by Linda. We'll see what happens.
I mean, some of these horses, even City Blocks. I know City Blocks had start last time out, totally different horse, but one against Condition Claiming. Same case for the 3. These just such an edge of who K-Cup's
if K-Cup runs
on
her race, she's going to beat these horses. I just am a little bit worried about her last race. She should have run a bit better in there.
Yep.
I mean, she really was bad in there. So that scared me a little bit. Huge scratch in race number 3 with the 7 coming out. It also changes the pace scenario. And if you have yesterday's track, can you make a case that Winter's Ghost wires the field? I'm just saying. Here's the speed of the 7 out. But you know what? I think 6 Kings goes a little bit. But I also think Bold Endeavor. I mean, I don't know what to do with Bold Endeavor off, what do we believe about this? But it's not as though he doesn't have good back form. And I know this race was at Parks, and he's got to bring the Parks form here. But he has run well here in the past.
That's the thing for me.
Excuse me.
Yes, it was a big race, but it's a big race he's produced before, and he has produced in New York before. He ran a figure this big in April at Aqueduct when he won. He ran it April 17th. He ran it February 23rd. He ran it January 23rd, all here in New York in wins. So I'm not concerned. This horse is just, he likes to win. He runs big races. He's so much better, I think, than anyone in this field. 9 years old, and he's still running his top races.
I mean, he's probably going to be a shorter price than K-Cup now with the scratch of Suerte, right?
Yeah, good point.
And it's interesting that the 2 biggest favorites in the card are before the pick 6. And, my feeling, the pick 6, it's funny. I've had this argument before because, in times when we've had like 4-horse features with a 3 to 5 shot or 2 to 5 shot, they've left them out of the pick 6. I disagree with that philosophy. I think it's better for players to have a potential free bingo square. I just think it makes it a little bit more playable. This is a very tough pick 6 we're about to enter into because there's nowhere to lean.
Okay. I'd rather not have, but different opinion.
I think it's just, I think, like, I always felt in the past, and I used to argue with my friend PJ Campo when he was the racing secretary running racing down at Gulfstream, when they would have those mandatory payouts in the horrible Rainbow Six, the worst thing brought into racing in my lifetime. And he would have like 6, 27 horse fields. And I'd say, like, you got to give people a chance. You got to have a couple of 6 and 7 horse fields in there. I mean, the problem is, to be frank, when they do that, now we don't have CAW in our pick 6, but you are catering, and as we know, they've catered to the CAW teams. You're catering it to help the big players, the people putting a lot of money. I think you want to give the little guy a chance. And when you have all of those big fields and make it hard, you're not going to hit the thing for $36. And you want to feel like the smaller player, and that's a 20-cent payout play. I just want to think the small players have a chance.
Okay.
Especially considering those carryovers and jackpots are built on the backs of small players.
Yeah.
And I think if you're built, it's different in our pick 6. It's a little different story. But when you're dealing with that bet, anyway, bigger discussion. See what happens as we get to the pick 6 with a carryover, $79,410, I believe is the number. We'll start with race number 4, and we'll show that's the Fact Jack and Spirit of Esther. Now, on yesterday's racetrack, are you confident that Spirit of Esther is the controlling speed?
No,
Because
I'm not.
Both potentially the 6, but also Furry Fox have some speed.
Yeah.
I don't know about Spirit of Esther in here, and I definitely don't know about that's the Fat Jack, who's 1 for 23, but did run okay last time.
Yeah, I mean, ran pretty good rolling by Spirit of Esther, who Spirit of Esther actually I felt like did do some hard running in here.
I agree.
Had to battle head-to-head with Toxic Girl, who wound up winning the race. And
you could say that that's a Fact Jack kind of picked up pieces, right?
Yes, you can. But there's a good chance it's going to happen again today, because I do think the 6 has a good chance to be the one in front.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Balaclara. Either this is an excellent pick or a horrible pick. I don't think there's middle ground with this horse. I mean, this may turn out to be the worst claim that Linda ever made, paying $30,000 for a horse that was running at Sunland Park in Zia. Having said that, and she did not lift a hoof last time, and we've taken completely opposite approaches in this race, because basically we handicapped the race exactly the same, save this horse. And you've taken the opinion of she sucks, and she might. But I also wonder if this is the kind of horse that Linda's just found the right field with, and so I put her on top.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, her speed makes her incredibly dangerous.
She might be hopeless. She had me speed last time. Anyway. Talk about Cha-Cha Ren.
Blenheim Baby, right?
Blenheim Babe, excuse me.
I just thought this one was interesting as I kind of went through this race more and more. I originally was thinking to go to the rail, but I just couldn't do it. Blenheim Baby, I think, has had stops and starts, and there's excuses. Look, went to the bench on late June of 24. I could forgive that 25 N2L coming back off a long layoff, ran a distant third for 25, then goes into a 40 N2L, and we don't see the horse again for 7 months. So I forgive that performance. I'm not concerned about it. Then 7-month layoff comes back, and for 30 N2L, 6 beat 7.5 lengths, needed that race coming back. I think we're going to see a real, not like this horse is some kind of star, but at least now the horse has a fighting chance to build on a start coming back, where it's been a lot of gaps and stops and starts.
More than fair. I have a much simpler approach here. I took the 2 drop downs. I put the 2 drop downs 1-2 in here. There's a huge difference between the 30s and the 17 numbers of 2 lifetime. Huge difference. So I just went with the droppers. The worry with Blenheim Babe, and I know you won't disagree with this, is Source has been in some pretty sharp barns. Eddie Keneally, Linda Rice, kind of been through the mill, but is second off a layoff and dropping, and I'm with you. I would use 6s and 5s. If I was playing a small pick 6, I would use 6s and 5s as my main 2 horses. I may have some C here and there, but they would be the 2 that I would lean on.
But I mean, this is the kind of race where nothing is
going to shock me in here. Can we take a break after this race so I can clear my throat, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about, thank you, Chelsea. We'll talk about the late pick 5 in just a moment. possibility, to be honest with you. What about Fort Griffin? You don't think he's going to be forward in here? I mean, he was pretty quick first time out. Do you think Manny's not going to go with him?
Yeah, I do.